It's time. Time to get inspired and empowered. To realize it's never too late to create your next amazing story. Get ready to break through, transform, and start living the life of your dreams. So, are you ready? Truly ready to begin your journey to create your next amazing story in life and love? Great. Let's jump in with your host, Life and Love Transformational Coach, Suzanne Oshima.
Welcome, everybody, to the It's Never Too Late show. I'm Suzanne Oshima, and I'm a life and love transformational coach at Your Next Amazing Story. I am so excited because we have a very special guest, Antia Boyd, and she's a Magnetize Your Man expert. So today we're going to be talking about it's never too late to attract an emotionally available man. So welcome, Antia.
Hey, Suzanne. How are you?
I'm good. So before we jump into how a woman can attract an emotionally available man, I would love for you to share your story and what made you become a Magnetize Your Man expert.
Oh, totally. Yeah, so for those of you who wonder about my accent, I grew up in Eastern Germany to an emotionally unavailable mother. And as a matter of fact, it's really interesting. You know, I was about 18 months old and I wanted to crawl into my mom's bed. And she rolled over and she said, "Stör mich nicht," which means don't bother me. And so that then ultimately became the core message. Don't be a burden, but that I really integrated inside of myself, right? My dad, on the other hand, he would always say, "Who do you think you are?" So that would be my second core message. So I took both core messages into my dating life. Right. And what I, of course, did is I didn't live that out right away. First of all, I developed a coping mechanism because it's way too painful to be with that. Who wants to walk around feeling like a burden and like being told all the time, "Who do you think you are?" Nobody. So I made sure I don't need anyone. Anybody relate to that? You know, I was being Miss Independent. I went grocery shopping by the time I was 8 years old. And by the way, I was really priding myself in that. I was really wondering, what's wrong with those other 8-year-olds? They're so spoiled. What, the parents are taking care of them? What, are they babies? And so you notice I became really hard, right? I became really hard, very masculine, very self-sufficient. However, it didn't serve me when I started dating. Because, Suzanne, one thing that happened, I sent mixed messages. Because guess what? Even though I was sending out, "I'm Miss Independent, I don't need anyone," my core belief, and that you better believe that I communicated that through my body language, my energy, was I don't want to be a burden. So I still ended up attracting men into my life who not only were emotionally unavailable, because so was I, by the way, but also who repeated this pattern inside of me that I'm a burden. Because that's what emotionally unavailable men do. They make you feel like a burden. So now that went on for a few years. And then I said, okay, you know what? I got to make a massive step to make a massive difference. Got myself into UC Berkeley, studied personality psychology and particular attachment style theory under the master student of Mary Ainsworth, who, of course, designed the very famous strange situation study. I know for those of you who are like attachment style nerds, you will appreciate that. You know, and I throw myself into workshops, seminars. And I'm sure you can relate to that, right? Like I was so sick and tired of attracting that same kind of energy into my life. So I learned how to communicate with men, masculine, feminine dynamics, you know, and anything else, you know, vulnerability, boundaries, you know, what else am I missing? You name it, I've done. And what ended up happening is I was helping other women because they were coming to me, Suzanne, and they would be like, "Oh, Auntie just took this workshop. I'm sure she has like the newest content for you. If she has the newest," so at church I would be in line, you know, and everybody would always be like talking to me about the newest wisdom. And, you know, when I saw it was working for them, but it wasn't working for me. And that's when I realized, hold on a second, it's not just about information. It's also about integration. So what's missing, right? Most of you that are watching right now are like, "I know all the stuff, yeah, la, 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 whatever," right? But like, yeah, okay, but you're not walking your talk. It's not integrated. You're not attracting the emotionally available men. So I hired a mentor for myself who helped me to break through those blind spots. My husband always says a fish doesn't know that he's wet which I'm like, there's some truth to that,
You're right.
I was wet, and really learning that I always put my best foot forward, but I never put my both feet in. I never put both feet forward. So that was a big breakthrough for me, setting boundaries without guilt, being vulnerable without weakness. And you know what? So that was in 2013 in August, and literally, 2012 in August, and literally in June of 2013, I met my husband, Brody, and he told me that I'm the girl of his story the first night. So it's never too late. I was single my whole life. My friends were always joking, I will be this eternal single, right? I'll never end up with anyone. Mm-hmm. And because I never let anybody in. So ladies, it's never too late. And now 6-year wedding anniversary is right around the corner.
Ah, I love that story. That's an amazing story. So now, Antia, because with you sharing that story, what it told me is that you're number one, you're very determined, right? But you're very self-aware, and you were able to see through your blind spots. And even when you saw them, it didn't make you go, oh, I should just give up, right? You were able to navigate through that. So my question for you is, what would you say to that woman that says, you know what, Suzanne and Antia, I don't know what it is, but I keep attracting emotionally unavailable men, and they're the common denominator. What would you say to her?
Well, so one, I would say you attract who you're being to yourself. So where are you unavailable to yourself? So I would say, okay, look at your two core emotions, anger and sadness, like the two core, quote unquote, negative emotions. Which one do you start ghosting on? By the way, if you're being ghosted on, what emotion are you ghosting on inside of yourself? Same story, right? It's like, and I really see that there's either resistance towards the anger part. I don't want to be the rage monster. I don't want to attack anyone. I don't want to offend anyone, right? Or my dad was a raging alcoholic. The last thing I'm going to be is going to be as raging as he is. Or sadness. No, I mean, I was sent to my room. I was told not to cry. I was actually abused when I started crying. So I had to harden up and not show anyone how I really feel. So that would be the second step I would recommend to her, right? And it's then like, okay, now step number 3 is you can't resist it, because you will just get a half emotionally available man and a half unemotionally available man into your life as well. So if you want your man to be available to all of his emotions, and by the way, if you want him to accept all of you, you want to be unconditionally loved, you want to be fully self-expressed and be fully embraced at the same time, well, then I invite you to actually show up who you really are, because he can't embrace you and accept you if you're not even visible.
That is so true. That's such a great point. Because I think so many women will show up with walls up and not showing who they truly are authentically because they're afraid, oh, what if he doesn't like me? Or what if he rejects me? Or I need to say and do everything quote unquote right. And it's not true, right?
Exactly. What I tell my women all the time is picture yourself on a date. What is the first thing that you're afraid to be judged, right? And what I hear most of the time is that I'm being too needy, that I'm sort of like asking for too much, or that I'm, too smart, right? Whatever it is, right? But there's some sort of too version. And then I say, okay, well, and then what do you do to compensate for that? Well, I'll do the opposite, right? I'm like self-sufficient, and I'll make sure he knows I'm driving myself home, and I make sure he knows that I graduated from Harvard, or I'm making sure that he doesn't know that I graduated from Harvard. So if I think I'm too smart, right? So in short, I turn myself into a chameleon. I'm in short, I focus on him. How could he perceive me as, versus who am I? What do I want? Am I enjoying this date?
Right. And that's really important, is that a woman do that little check-in, because I think sometimes women can turn into that people pleaser, and she puts his needs above her own. And then by the time the date's done, she's kind of like, oh, he didn't ask me anything about me. but she has to take responsibility for the part that she played because she kind of played herself down, right? Or like you said, turned into that chameleon.
Absolutely. And then two things are going to happen. Either he's going to like you, but he's not going to respect you. So you're always like, Bill, because he knows, oh, she's willing to just turn herself into a pretzel. Obviously, I'm the prize. So that's what the man is thinking, right? So it's like, oh, so that means I don't respect her. And for two, yeah, there is this love and there's the support towards a man, but a man also wants to be challenged. So if you're not holding your own, and I know where your boundaries are, you like art, even though he doesn't like art, if you can show him, you're still gonna love art. Regardless if he does it, he's gonna love you for it. He's gonna start loving art just because you love art, not because he loves art. But he'll be like, what is it about this woman that she's so confident inside of herself? He'll love Tupperware in this book, Why Men Love Bitches, right? There's the story. This man falling in love with this woman who doesn't go on a cruise with him, all expenses paid, because she has a Tupperware party. And halfway around, he turns around from the cruise, gets off early. He's like, I got to figure out what that Tupperware party is all about. Because,
That's really interesting that you say that, because I've heard about that book, Men Love Bitches, but I've never read it. But it's interesting because the scenario that you described to me is not really her being the bitch, right? It's really about her standing for what she wants to do and having a healthy boundary and saying, no, this is what I want to do and I'm going to stick to it. I know I want to do that with you, but this is important to me. So I don't really think of it as she's being a bitch.
Totally,
Am I
totally.
correct?
I totally agree with that. And that's what the author actually says at the end of the book, that
really?
the idea is not, that's just how it's perceived, right? But the idea is actually you have your own standards, you have your own values, and you're unapologetic about that. Like, it's more important to you to be in alignment with yourself, to be honest to yourself, to be in your own, what I call queen integrity, the integrity of a queen, right? That's more important to you than if this guy likes you. Or if this guy approves of whatever you do. Maybe you sing and you don't have the best voice. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. To be honest with you, it doesn't really matter. But what matters is how much are you advocating for yourself?
Yeah, that's so true. That is so true. So, and Tia, okay, so this is so great. I love this. Okay, so now that we uncovered a little bit here, so now let's just say a woman starts dating a man and she's like, I think he's emotionally available. He tells me he wants the right relationship and he says he wants to get married someday and he says he's looking for a woman just like me. But she starts to feel like he's not 100% emotionally available. Are there ways or things that she can ask him to figure out if he truly is emotionally available? If she's not sure?
Right. So, it would really depend on what she's kind of like basing that on, right? Because like I would look at, is this projection? Meaning like, is there still a part inside of herself where, we always have little like leftovers, we have little like residuals, right? There's like a little piece hiding in a corner that we may not be aware of, right? Maybe we're not going as deep with the conversation. Maybe we still have the conversation, but maybe there's a cutoff at some point. Maybe there's a threshold where maybe we're laughing when we're actually sad. Mm-hmm. So just really seeing, okay, so what's going on there? And then the other piece is also, I teach my women the principle of the 6 feminine archetypes, and then my husband developed the 6 masculine archetypes. So what I usually do is I take them through the 6 masculine archetypes, and then I would say, in which archetype do you think he's not available? And you know what I mean? So I would really see what's going on. Is he like really playful, but maybe he's like a little irresponsible? Like, maybe it's more about freedom, but like, what about long-term stability? That's maybe not so much there, right? Or maybe it's the other way around. He's very mental, he's very intellectual, he's very cerebral, but he's not that spontaneous. Or, he doesn't take the sexy joke and just kind of creates a little polarity and a sizzling banter with it, right? So I would really see like what's going on, like where do you feel that? And then the third part is, where may he not feel safe to be all of himself? So where's there not like a complete, authentic, and transparent space that you're creating through maybe what you're sharing? Maybe you're still selective with sharing. I get you're available, all of that, but maybe you still have like some selective way where I'm like, well, I may not necessarily share that right now, but maybe that's exactly what he needs to be like, wow, now I feel safe to actually share that I lost my brother, or that I lost my job 5 years ago and it was devastating for me and I lost my identity, or whatever the case may be. So it's kind of like, what frame are you setting for him?
So now I can hear my audience saying this in their head. Okay, Antia, I think that sounds great, but what if I do that and he like completely shuts down and I'm out there with my heart open and now I feel super vulnerable because now he's not reciprocating and now I'm scared because I'm going to get my heart broken.
Totally. Well, there's actually two situations. So one example I will bring from my own life from 10 years ago when I was dating this guy, and he told me that I kiss too much. I'm like too affectionate, I kiss too much, or something along those lines, right? And I said, well, this is who I am. So again, I reinforced. So versus like, oh, you're rejecting me. Oh, this is too much for you. Now I get my heart broken and I'm backing up and you're not the right one, right? I did the opposite. I said, well, this is it. This is the whole enchilada. And then he's like, oh, no, I'm just joking. I'm just kidding. You know what I mean? No, it's great. It's great. I love it. I love it. Yeah, you were so great. And then he ended up pursuing me and all the stuff and did all the stuff he never did with other women. So I also invite you to actually stay your ground, even if initially he may shut down, even if initially he may be like, oh, like that's a little too much. Do you need to hold hands all the time? Or I don't do PDA, or like whatever the case may be. Like I really invite you to first to actually reinforce it, right? And yeah, if he still doesn't do it, which of course sometimes you smile at guys and they don't smile back, then the other tool I have for you is like, rest assured, and this is what I really was one of my breakthroughs, is that the energy still goes out. It's almost like I want you to visualize as if the energy goes through him. So let's say you shared something vulnerable, right? I guarantee you the world will bring somebody into your life who appreciates that share. You may go out the next night. You may get an introduction from somebody, but it's the test. Are you gonna stay on that track, or are you gonna start to turn into an apologetic chameleon?
Yeah, and Tia, I love that story that you just shared because there was so much there in that. I love how you stood in your power. Like, a lot of women could have gone, oh my God, he's criticizing me, and oh my God, I'm doing something wrong, and gone into that turtle mode of pulling back in. And you just kind of said, hey, I'm standing in my power. This is me. This is how I do things. And if you didn't say this, but I read it as if you don't like it, feel free to move on. And then he panicked a little and he's like, no, I was just kidding, right? And he came back in. And so you really stood in your power, and I love that, and in your feminine energy.
And the reason why I didn't say take it or leave it, because that would have been a shame shield.
Yeah.
Brene Brown talks about the shame shields. That would have been like, well, I don't care anyways, which was not true. So what was important for me was like, I'm going to stay open. And it's going to be awkward, and he's going to feel awkward, and there's going to be this tension. And you know what? And you may say, ladies, I know, oh yeah, Auntie, yeah, but I don't have that inner resourcefulness, right? Like, oh, you probably had like the best life. I have a narcissistic mother who constantly told me, don't bother me. You annoy me. You're singing too loud. So for a guy to tell me, basically, you're kind of like doing this too much, was re-traumatizing my little girl. So if you think this is like all because you're like gifted, or you had this innate confidence, no, I had like such a low self-confidence, but I also had enough, and I started like, I have to build up myself and I have to believe in myself, because otherwise nothing will ever change.
Yeah, and Tia, what I also see is that you were willing to open up that dark, scary closet and pull out all that baggage and say, what do we have here? And what do I get to unpack so that it doesn't control me anymore? So that I'm not hiding and feeling like I have to hold this closet door shut, right?
Right. I call this be secure in your insecurity. So for those of you who have more an anxious attachment style, who tend to be more clingy, who visualize yourself walking down the aisle with the guy that you had one date with, I get it. I call this future anticipation land. The answer to that is be secure in your insecurities. Don't run away from it. Don't pretend you're not that. Like, no, it's all good. I can do that. No. Say, yes, I am needy. I have needs. I can be anxious. By the way, I told my husband that within 1 to 2 weeks of meeting him. By the way, just letting you know, I do have an anxious attachment style, so I'm going to resource myself, but I just may act weird occasionally, a little interesting. So just want to let you know when that happens, and I may back off. It's not about you. And again, this is also about, and that opened up for him, that's opportunity of, wow, this woman is so authentic and transparent. And then he's like, yeah, and I have this runner. Wow, I never shared that with anyone, but I have this part that comes up. Speaking of this other question that you had before, Suzanne, about what if he's not completely sharing everything with me, right? It's like, well, are you leaning into the edge as much as you want him to lean into the edge?
Good point. That makes a lot of people go, right?
Right?
It's something to think about. So, well, this has been amazing. So, Antia, how can the ladies find you?
Yeah, so for those of you who are just really interested to learn more, you can take my quiz on magnetizeyourman.com. So you can hop on over there and also find me on YouTube, Antje Boyd. Nobody spelled like me, so it's easy, Antia Boyd. And yeah, like looking forward to continuing this journey with you ladies. And thank you so much for having me here, Suzanne.
Aw, thank you so much, Antia. So thanks everybody for joining us on the It's Never Too Late show. Our show is available both in audio and video format, which can be found at yournextamazingstory.com.
Love today's episode of the It's Never Too Late show? Then head on over to yournextamazingstory.com to continue the conversation, get access to show notes, and get more amazing content.